This is A Geek Leader. Welcome to episode 147 of A Geek Leader Podcast. I'm your host, John Rauda, and today's episode is brought to you by Private Internet Access. And if you haven't used Private Internet Access, then you're probably not surfing the web securely. I use Private Internet Access whenever I'm connecting from my home to do anything, whenever I travel especially. I remember a couple years ago I went to a conference, and as soon as I connected to the hotel Wi-Fi, my endpoint protection was like pinging me that I was not secure, that I was getting attacked by different folks. So I immediately opened up Private Internet Access, connected to my VPN, and all that went away. Private Internet Access is an encryption service. It encrypts all your traffic going in and out. You can also choose different geolocations. So if I'm testing something, I make a change, and my DNS servers are caching in my area, I can hop on over and log in California and then test it and say, oh, okay, DNS here, doesn't have the cache that I had before, so I can see the changes that I've made accurately, and it makes things so much easier and so much better. And you can try Private Internet Access for just $3 a month. Seriously, $3.33 a month is what it's starting at. And just visit ageekleader.com/VPN. Again, that's ageekleader.com/VPN. All right, Geek Leaders, today on the show, we've got Captain John, Coach Havlik. And Coach was on the show a while back. We talked about his book, Leadership Killers. We talked about some of the things that really tank leadership. And today we're going to continue some of that conversation, also talk about what's new in John's life and some of the questions that I have to help me become a better leader. So, John, welcome to the show.
Thanks, John. Thanks for having me back on your show again. Appreciate it. And Happy New Year to everybody, even though it's we're almost a month gone now. So.
Yeah, it's going by fast, hasn't it?
This has been a bad month for me, and I'll talk about it a little bit about my academic adventures.
Well, before we get into that, we picked up several listeners since you were on before. I know our numbers are continuing to go up, and the people that may have missed the first episode. Tell us a little bit about kind of where your career has taken you. You are a retired Navy SEAL, which is pretty awesome. But how did that start, and where did that take you to where you're at today?
Well, I retired in 2014, and got reconnected with a buddy of mine from West Virginia. He was a diver. I was a swimmer. Bill Treasure. He's a co-author of the book that we wrote, and we have. In the last 5 years, I've been doing a lot of support and helping him for his business, Giant Leap Consulting. Does a lot of work on courageous leadership, and so he has workshops, seminars all over the country, and he's been real great bringing me in and let me talk to the audiences and share my sea stories and the good and the bad. And so we've been doing that. And then recently, we released the book in October of 2018. Been pushing that real hard last year. It was a good year. Got out, did a lot of talks in support of that, and great feedback on the book. And we released an audiobook just before the end of the year. So the book is now on Audible, and I'm real happy with that. And then the new thing was I kind of was getting bored. The speaking and the book stuff was good, but this unique opportunity came up to go back to school. And so at the age of 60, I decided to pursue my doctorate. So that was kind of a shock.
So what's that been like? And I guess you said you got into it because you were bored, which is, when I'm thinking of a board, that's not where I'm going. But
yeah, well, it was it's just kind of one of those things. I was on a book signing. A couple friends of mine talked about this program, and they said, "What are you going to do next?" And I go, "Guys, I don't know. I love the speaking, but I don't do it enough. I mean, I do enough to stay busy, but I was like, I got all these educational benefits from the Veterans Administration. I really should take advantage of them." And so they said, "Hey, you need to go to schools," and we know just the program. So they put me in contact with a few people, and I decided to enroll in the Chief Learning Officer program. It's an executive doctoral program at the University of Pennsylvania. And so I started that in October. And so far, very good, challenging, daunting at times to be back in the classroom at my age. And everybody just looks at me like, what are you doing? And but I think, I'm kind of finding in this semi-retired life of mine is you got to keep your mind active. And I want to keep learning and growing. And so what a unique opportunity came my way. And, I jumped on it. Just like I remember when I heard about the SEALs and got the opportunity, I didn't think too hard on it. I said, let's just go for it. So that's what I'm doing. That's what I've been doing. And so that's what it's not for everybody. I can tell you there's times I remember the first week in the classroom, I'm like, God, what am I doing here? And, it's been a long time, and being at an Ivy League institution, it's, the pressure's there and the expectations are great there. So, but so far it's been good. Great class, great instruction so far, and very excited to continue on and go for my doctorate. So that's the update.
Yeah, I've definitely been thinking about that. I've been teaching part-time at Winthrop University for, more than a decade now. And, I only teach one class a semester, and it's always like the introduction to computer science or digital information design. It's a very, introductory level class. But the idea of getting my PhD has been something I've thought about a lot. And, I definitely not going to do it right now when I've got young kids, because I don't think I'd have the time to really put forth the effort with, soccer and basketball and softball and whatever else the kids are playing. But it's definitely something I'm interested in. I'm going to definitely follow up with you maybe after you finish and see how it went, if you thought it was worth it, if it, what the hours were like and all that good stuff, because I imagine it's totally different than the undergrad at West Virginia.
Well, it is. And, I admire, I'm probably the oldest in the class. Luckily, there's someone else who retired. He's about a year behind me, but he wants to become an academician. And so, the program, the Chief Learning Officer program, is kind of focused on talent development, professional development, leadership, and all this stuff. So all the stuff I'm already talking about, writing about, I'm learning more, so I figure if this can only add to my credit, my credibility when I speak, and it kind of exposes me to new things, that I haven't been exposed to or aware of. And so it's great for me. But I admire the other students in my class, because they all got full-time jobs, they own businesses, they're from all over the world, and they got families too, and I'm like, Jesus, how do they do it? How do they juggle? Because it is time consuming, and it's a commitment. So, I think the first semester, they generally recognize the subject that we talked about. They say is the hardest semester, probably not the one you want to start off with, but I guess I chose poorly and walked into it. But it can be it's a commitment, and so if you're going to do it, just be aware it takes a lot of time. But the others are doing it, and I think it's a commitment on the family part too, to let the student go through with it. So yeah, I'll be happy to share my academic stories anytime you want.
Yeah, for sure. I think it was Brian Tracy that said, if you got to eat 3 frogs, eat the biggest one first. And maybe that's what you're doing with the class.
Well, I don't know. It's 5 semesters. Each semester is a different subject. So just by the nature of the timing, you come in during the school year, I didn't know. I guess I didn't know this was the worst one. But what it did was give me an idea of what the actual dissertation side of the house is going to be like, and just a small taste of it. But a good eye opener that this is what it's going to take. It's going to take a lot of time and commitment on your part, and to go through with it. So today's a good day because I uploaded my final assignment from the first semester, and so that is off my back. So
nice.
I'm ready to go.
So you got the nickname Coach really from being a swim coach, but now I think you're also coaching other leaders too. Is that correct?
Yeah, I try to help out whoever wants. So, I mean, athletic side of the house, business. I was, like we were talking beforehand, I'm actually working with a really good guy in the IT profession who is kind of in a career transition and has now found himself in a leadership position. And so he comes on and we talk twice a month for an hour. And he's read the book and likes the messages from the book. And so I just try to help him transition and, want him to succeed. He's a good guy, and so I'll help him out as much as possible.
And just to remind some people, your book, Leadership Killer, what is the core principle about what is it that kills leadership?
Well, the co-author and I, we argue. I'll use my doctorate talk. Is we argue that hubris is the single most lethal leadership flaw that makes good leaders go bad. Mm-hmm. And my feeling is hubris is the root of all evil, and that if you're hubristic, and then every other negative trait you can associate with poor or bad leaders, just comes from hubris. And so that's what we write about, and we offer up real world stories of people that have done good leaders who have done unprofessional or bad things. And we offer up Bill from his corporate and business experience, and then mine from the military, good and bad, lived experiences of hubris, and we offer up tips on kind of how to check it and still maintain your humility and still be a good leader. So. Yeah,
definitely. And I know for me, it's interesting that you mentioned the guy from technology, that coming from a tech background and working with a lot of tech leaders, we fall into that category and we get overconfident, quite frequently, which is I heard a stat in one of my interviews a few months ago that it was something like 80% of all software projects run late. And a big part of that is because we overestimate our abilities. We overestimate how confident we are in getting this thing knocked out, and how easy it is going to be to do it because we are all knowing and all confident. And It turns out we're not, and we fall short. And having that humility is one of those skills that I think, and I do use the word skill. I think it's a skill you can learn and work towards, staying humble. But it's one of those things that's almost like a forgotten art when it comes to technology.
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm still learning about your field of work. So, like I say, I'm challenged to turn the computer on. So that's my IT savviness. But, in talking with this gentleman, he, just basic stuff about, it seems communication is a problem, especially within organizations, and it seems like everybody's kind of in their own little cubicle or in a very myopic, kind of focused attention span. It's my stuff and nothing else. And really, I just try to offer up, some tips on, you got to, communication is important, especially if you're trying to do the mission. And, the bottom line is you want to do well, so everybody's got to work together. But it seems, again, just talking with him in a short time, that's a big issue for you all. And so I'll try to help him. Out. And
so what kind of advice would you have for communication? Because communication is one of the troubles that I've noticed. And I actually went to a session when I was at that conference I was telling you about earlier before we got on this podcast. And I went to a session on communication for geeks. So it's all about kind of like that it's becoming apparent in the field that communication is one of our problems. It's one of the things that we're not so strong at. What are some tips that you have to improve communication, among managers and their, direct reports?
Well, I guess my question to you back is, what did they say were what were the core issues in the IT field?
I think a lot of it was the fact that we don't communicate, or we don't like the face-to-face or the picking up the phone and calling people, and we'll just send a text or a Slack message to someone. Right. And, with the words that you're sending, you're getting only about a third of what's the actual message getting across. And sometimes that the way that the person is receiving it totally changes the actual core message. For example, I could say, you know, Coach is great at IT, and I can mean it in a sarcastic way, right? But somebody might take it in a legit, honest way, or vice versa. They may take it as if I'm being sarcastic, but I'm being genuine. And you don't know that because you miss out on the tone of my voice, the inflection that I'm using, the facial cues, or whatever else. And that was kind of the big takeaway that I had. There were a lot of other points, but that was what I was thinking. Is like, I see that in my team quite frequently, that we'll send messages to each other and totally miss what we're trying to get because we're just using words and we're don't have the full picture. Yeah,
the biggest thing I often say, and I think in anything that applies, and this is what I offer up to him, is because he was like he said, he was leaving another job, transitioning into a leadership position. And I said, just when you're on board, when you first get on board, just open your ears and listen, ask some general questions and let your workers drive the discussion, and just listen to what they have to say. But, be attentive to what they're trying to say. And then once you get in a position to start implementing change, make sure you push away from your desk and walk around and talk to people. And we're all guilty of it with the way social media is and the avenues out there to get the word out. But it's a skill we've lost. Sitting down, talking to people, looking at them eye to eye is very effective. But a lot of people can't do it anymore because we're so ingrained into our cell phones and everything else. So I just told him very simple, just listen to your people when you first get there. He's got a plan now, and he's going around, he's talking to his division or his department and telling them why they're doing it, what he expects and stuff like that. And one-on-one, not just sending an email out or something like that. So
no, I think that's key is to, if you can get up from your desk and go walk and talk to someone. And if they're a remote employee and you don't have that luxury, do a video call at the very least,
Absolutely. I mean, it's, we did it overseas. We had guys all over the world or, all over Iraq or Afghanistan, and that video call is real important because you get to see them and you lose the emotion, you lose the message, the content, the context, when you just send out just a general email or publication or something like that. So, yeah, every opportunity you can, get out of your office and walk around and talk to your people.
Mm-hmm. No, I think that's extremely important. And I know when I think it was Simon Sinek, I was listening to a talk by he wrote a book called Leaders Eat Last, and he used the military a lot as a reference points that he was talking about. And one of the things that he mentioned, he used an example of, would you send out an email to your son and say, son, we think you're a valued member of the family. We want to know if you could, tell us bluntly what we can do to be better parents. Or would you go to the son and sit them down on the bed and go face to face and put your arm around them and say, son, you're a valued member of this family. Say the exact same words, but do it face to face. Use that time and energy and that effort to build that relationship.
Yeah, you got to also be careful what kind of feedback you may get, Mm-hmm. So that's always the caution before you go do that is if you're going to open yourself up and to do it, to be effective, when you go walk around, you have to you have to do it consistently. You just can't do it like once every 3 months or something like that. I made it a point when I did it. I had an opportunity every Friday when I was in a leadership position to walk around and check the field day of my command. But I made it a point to get out of my office and I went around and talked to my people. But I had to do it every time I was local, and it was a huge commitment on my part because it took like 2 or 3 hours to do it. But that was 2 or 3 hours out of my work schedule. So I knew, oh Christ, I'm gonna have to stay late or I may have to come on the weekend and do this. Huge commitment on my part, but you have to do it consistently, and once people see that, then they tend to open up and be, give you a lot of feedback, which is really effective.
Yeah, I think that consistency also builds the trust, Yeah. And if they don't trust you, then they won't give you that honest feedback. They're going to just tell you what you want to hear.
Yeah, you got to be real careful though, because if you open up, mm-hmm. You may not get what you want to hear, and so. It's I kind of like diving or ice skating in the Olympics. You take the highs and low scores and you throw them out and you score what's in the middle, but you kind of take some of those issues that are, because if people want to tell you that, then it may be important, and so at least, take the context and see what it is. But yeah, just if you're going to open it up, be careful. But what I learned over time was that by doing it consistently, people were professional about it. There was an opportunity to talk to the XO, but it was still one-on-one. It was eye to eye. It wasn't me talking down to them or them talking up to me. I was on the same level with him. So the confidence was built that this was honest discussion with leadership and me having an honest discussion with the folks who do the work, so very effective, took time, commitment, consistency on my part to make it work. But when it was in place, it was invaluable.
Do you think walking around to basically meeting them where they're at made a bigger difference than having them come to your office?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, because they're more comfortable in their work environment, their workspace. And it was good for me to kind of, if I was the leadership of the command, I needed to know what's going on, So it was important for me to kind of find out where everybody worked because we were spread out all over base. And so, but I think it's more effective when you go down to where the people work and, and where they're comfortable at. Yes.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I think it's important to spend that time going to their environment, and showing you're part of the team. I'm not too big to where you have to come to my office all the time. I'll come out and come to your desk and sit down and let's have a chat. Let's talk. Let's catch up.
Well, the general feeling in the military is, at least in the Navy, is you never want to be called to the XO's office, So, because it's usually never good, So if I was out there, they were, yes, just go to them if you can at all opportunities.
And that's kind of like going to the principal's office, I guess.
Yeah. There's nothing good at the principal's office.
Yeah, for sure. So as you're taking this, you've kind of had this big life change going from being a military leader to now teaching people about leadership. What are the parallels that you've seen kind of carry on that are very similar between military life and business life?
I think it's always about the bottom line, whether it's the mission or your profits, losses, what's the job's all about. I think it's professionalism in the job that you do. Leadership to me is whatever you're doing. You want to be the example that everybody, they look up to you. They want to know that you're out front looking for their best interests, and when you have to make a hard decision, that you do it, and hopefully it's a positive effect on everybody. But I don't think there's just a little more regimentation, and we wear a uniform. But I think the basics of just, like I said, just being a good leader, being decisive, and then being professional and focusing on the bottom line and the mission carries over wherever you're going.
Yeah, for sure. I think there's so much carryover between, I never served in the military. My dad did. So, I've learned a lot from stories from him, but I got on a kick about reading. I think I read your book. I read Tom Shea's book. I read I read a lot of Navy SEAL books for a period of time. I got on this kick because I kept getting, information from them that I was like, that's so useful in my current, scenario, the things that I'm working on. And they were also very entertaining, too, because you guys got great stories and, there's always something good that you can pull out of there. But when you can relate that also to the things that you're working on, you see that there are a lot of similar things because we're all people, right? And most of leadership is about working with the people.
Yeah, it's a big deal. I think the beauty of, at least for me, being a SEAL was you learn a lot. It's a small community or a small network of folks, and so you go through BUD/S training, and you have that in common. And then whenever you go into your career and you work with guys throughout your career, it's just a little bond you have, and just kind of an understanding and expectation of what you need to do, and it's very professional. That's what I liked about it. And very disciplined, you know. But the guys I worked with are not just SEALs, but the folks in special operations. So it's a little different, you know. And I really like that. I like that aspect of it. So
when it comes to discipline, how important is it for leaders to be disciplined? Do you think that's a quality that's, you know, overrated or underrated, or how do you think that falls when it comes to leading in business?
I mean, discipline to me is real important if you're a leader, because you set the tone, you set the policies, and so you establish the culture of your business. And so I never respected. I mean, I worked for a lot of good guys. I worked for a lot of bad ones too, and the ones that didn't really seem very well are the ones that would do what I say and not what I do, you know. And I didn't respect those guys very well, but I just think, that's really the bottom line.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. I think going back to what you said earlier about consistency, I think, you know, when you're disciplined and consistent with your culture, you mentioned your cultural values. I think the cultural norms that you set up for your team, and you stay consistent with that through discipline, you know, for the most part, that's going to set the path for everyone that's looking up to you, that's seeing you as an example, and will just kind of lead those people in that direction. At least that's what I found.
Yeah, I mean, discipline is, you know, every leader's different, so you have to find your style. And so whatever you pick, however you want to do it, just stay consistent throughout, you know. And I always thought in the military, I just thought if you came in hard and stay hard, you know, don't come in soft and then try to change if it's not effective, you know. It's I just thought people respond a lot better, and the expectations are greater when they know where you're coming from, and you stay like that throughout, and then that's what I tried to do. So, and those were the leaders that were effective to me.
Yeah, for sure. So do you have any tips for people that maybe are starting to realize that maybe they're getting that a little bit of self-awareness and saying, you know what, I've been a little bit too how is the right word? I guess going back to hubris, I've been too self-confident. I've been too cocky, too arrogant. My ego has been kind of getting in my way. How can I be more humble? What are some tips for people that may have gone too far and need to kind of learn more about how to be humble?
Like, I guess the first thing I would say is whether you're successful or maybe you need to relook what's going on, it's always good to reevaluate, you know? And we kind of learned that on a battlefield, that if a plan, you know, if a strategy is not working, you've got to change it. And even if it is working, you know, you don't want the enemy to adapt to what you're doing. So you're always evaluating and changing to stay in front of them, you know. So whether you're successful or not, you should always be continuing to reevaluate what you're doing and making sure you're doing it right and effectively. And then I just think, you know, with the hubristic side of the house, you know, we kind of offer 3 tips in the book to try to check yourself and to maintain your humility. And the first one is have a check, and that's somebody that you trust that can call you out or give you good advice, you know, and especially call you out if you're starting to step over the line, or, you know, you get too big for your britches, as my mom would tell me when I was growing up, you know, and that's real hard to find, but you got to have a check. That's very, very important, because, you know, what Bill and I talk about in the book is, you know, hubris kind of just waits in the shadows and always hits you from behind. And usually as a leader, you're always looking forward, not checking your back and your six. So that's where your check comes in, and make sure they're covering your back. The second thing we always say is open up your mental aperture, you know, and just, you know, realize that you don't know everything when you're in charge. And if you do, to me, if you think you do, then that's really the first sign of hubris kind of starting to come in. And so, it's okay to ask questions. It's okay to admit you don't know everything. People appreciate you more when they can help you out, because ultimately it's all about the success of everyone in the organization. And then the last thing we always offer up is, and we talked about it earlier, was just push away from your desk and get out of your office and just go down and meet people. And I always admire Admiral McCraven when he was a commander here, Special Operations Command. It's a big headquarters of about 5,000 people, and he made it a point every week of going down and to a different division or directorate that worked for him, just to meet people and talk with them, and which is a big deal for him because he was on the road a lot and not in Tampa an awful lot. But for him to take that time to go out and meet people, and I did that a lot earlier when I was in Panama. But the effectiveness of pushing away, getting out of your office, going down and meet your people where they work, where the work is actually being done, is really effective.
Yeah, I think it's good for both, for the leader and for the people. I mean, I know whenever I spend time like with, let's just say my help desk team, and I'm working with them doing a project or something like that, we had to replace a bunch of digital signs. And usually it would just be like, hey, go out and take the TVs down, put the new ones up, and do it. And I decided it was on a Friday, and Fridays are what I call my fun day Friday. I'm going to go do something physical, get out of the office.
Right.
So I was like, I'm going to go down there and help them, and I'm going to spend time with those guys all day, taking TVs out, doing physical work, and getting to know them and talking to them. And it was as helpful for me to kind of understand them as I think it is for them to see me as an actual person and not just as a boss.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's like I said, those 2-3 hours I did every Friday, I'd go back to my office and just get, better understanding what was going on around the command. And sometimes I would see stuff that would come in my inbox, and I'd be reading it, and I go, what is this all about? And so when I would go down and walk around, if I didn't understand a process or a way that a certain department was doing something, I'd grab the junior guy, I'd go, explain to me what are you doing here, and why do you do it this way? And they would explain it, and it was great. It was I learned so much, and then I realized how much I didn't know. So yes, invaluable for the leader to get out of the office and go down and meet your people and talk with them.
Yeah, definitely. And I think what you were talking about having a check in the book, I think you called it a master chief, right? You had your master chief that would kind of, so someone who had kind of been there before, had a lot of experience, and would kind of keep you in line. Is that correct?
Yeah, we kind of called it, at least in the Navy. I see services do it all a little differently, but we call it the top three. And so it was the commanding officer, the executive officer, and then the command master chief or senior enlisted. And so the master chief usually was your most experienced enlisted person, and he kind of had a flavor of the sailors, and what they were thinking. And your XO is the guy that executes your policies, and runs the command on a day-to-day basis. So, it was important, at least for me, and I saw it, the most effective commands are the top three would get together, close the door, talk out issues, open the door, and come out with a unified voice, But also, when I was in charge, the XO, when we closed the door, there were a lot of times where the XO or even the master chief would go, "Hey, sir, you may want to relook things. I don't think you want to do this." And so you would talk it out, and that was my check. That was an important check, yes. And so it was important as a commanding officer that those guys, you had they knew that they could come to you and call you out when you were getting carried away. So, yep, very important.
I think that's a great way you said it, that, when you're out in front of everybody, you stand together and you stand strong together. But then when you're behind closed doors, you'll be honest and open and say, hey, yeah, this is we need to retalk this out. We need to think this through. But when the decision's made, you stick with it.
You got to have one unified voice. You can't, the commanding officer couldn't go out with his message and then the XO's doing something else, and the master chief is going around telling his version of the story. You got to have a unified voice in front of the command so that everybody knows what's going on. The message is the same, and they know what to expect.
Yep, absolutely. Well, Coach, man, it's been an honor having you back on the show. You're always welcome to come back. If you have anything you want to add or talk about, you're always welcome to come back to the show. And for the audience, check out the Leadership Killer. I'll link it up in the show notes. You can get that at geekleader.com. And Coach, how can people connect with you if they want to maybe get on board with coaching or learn more about what's going on in your life?
Well, I got Twitter at Coach Havlik. I got LinkedIn, John Havlik, and I got my own little website, CoachHavlik.com. That's the way you can get a hold of me. Just last page, you can send me an email, or it's got my contact information there. And I also do a lot of work, like for my buddy, my co-author Bill Treasure at Giant Leap Consulting. So you can always reach me through those avenues. And then the book, it's you can check leadershipkiller.com. And like I said, it's on Audible now. So lots of ways out there.
Yeah, and our audience probably will pick that up on Audible because that's I know we're your listeners, that's for sure. So thanks again, John, for coming on the show. Greatly appreciate it, and thanks for your service.
Yeah, John, thanks very much for having me on again. Appreciate it.
Hope you guys enjoyed that episode with Coach John Havlik, and if so, please leave a rating and review in iTunes. Also, I wanted to give you guys a heads up. After we recorded this, I got a message that Bill Treasure and Coach Havlik are going to come back on the show one more time to talk about their relationship together and how they wrote their book, Leadership Killers, and get into some more detail about kind of some of the nuances. So if you've enjoyed these episodes with Coach Havlik, we got one more coming up in the series, at least one more, if not more than that. And also, I want to remind you guys about today's sponsor, Private Internet Access. You can get your VPN very, very affordably at $3.33 a month by going to geekleader.com/VPN. Definitely check it out. I've been using them for years. Really, really enjoyed their service. Excellent product. Again, that's at geekleader.com/VPN.